For AuData, the operating system for modern media, audata.io. Dear listener, this is the Quarter Hour. And continuing my conversation with legendary Australian radio CEO, Paul Thompson. In this episode, he talks about the coming together of the then Austereo network with the Triple M network.
With Village Roadshow came Triple M. The two networks came together and it was going to be a different company. Not by any means am I suggesting a worse company, and it may have even been a better company, but it was a hybrid company, different. And I thought meant time for me to go, and I did. Leaving that company was a very, very painful experience for me, but I didn't have anything to go to, anything to do even, and I had a non-compete clause which stopped me from doing anything for a year. In that time, DMG, the UK company, asked me to build a network in opposition to the one that I had built previously at Austereo. I'm going to come back to that, more to your question, but I was at that point unemployed, a contract that stopped me from being employed, almost, and I didn't have a radio station to work out of, didn't have any people, didn't have any means of employing any people because I didn't have a radio station to pay them or employ them or give them work. And at that time, the South Australian government, they were divesting the things that they owned that they didn't think needed to be owned by a government, one of which was the TAB and a radio station that it controlled. So I thought, okay, I tried to buy another station. I won't go into that one. That was a difficult time. But second choice was 5AA. So that's how far down the path it was.
Wow.
And we negotiated with them, and we bought the radio station as a base.
Right.
A base to bring people in so that we could put together a group of talented people who would be capable of running a national network that didn't exist yet. So they all had, this is bravery on behalf of those people who I asked to come in and join me. I said, I'm asking you to believe that DMG is a company. I, as an individual, are capable of creating a network out of stations that don't exist, out of licenses that don't exist, capable of running against this great network, Austereo, which was almost part of me. It was so, I felt so deeply about it. And you will need to work in this talk radio station, because we don't have any hours. You'll have to work in this talk station and do some things that, and progressively, we will build a national network. That national network, I'd say it now, but I'll come back to it, is now called Nova, is pretty darn successful in its own right. There were people, Keith Thomas was one of the early ones who is known more as a very innovative salesperson than, he wasn't obviously a programmer, but there were lots of other people came in progressively, and you yourself at some stage in all that. I then had a station that I didn't really know anything about, in a format that I didn't really know anything about, but we had to make it work.
Yeah.
We had to make it work enough to be able to, among other things, pay the people who were being brought in for the creation of a national network.
Yeah, certainly brave. Did you know, or did the Daily Mail Group know when it bought 5AA that absolutely there would be licence auctions, or it was still speculative at that point?
Going back to that, and this, I think, was, if we're talking about bravery, this was probably the moment that encapsulates it all most obviously. The bravery, firstly, of the company, DMG, to say, we wish to build a national network to run against this great company, Austereo, and I will credit myself with some bravery for that decision to say, yes, I will build that for you, even though there are no stations available anywhere to be bought, but there are also no licenses in existence.
Yeah.
It was necessary to go to the government in the face of, by the way, the most intense lobbying from the entire industry. Every company in Australia, every AM station, the Austereo network, Village Roadshow, everybody, understandably, entirely understandably, of course they wanted to kill us off. Another one, get us at birth or pre-birth in this case. And we persuaded the government eventually to make some licenses available. But the bravery aspect of the challenge in that was persuading them to make licenses available is one thing, but unlike the original FM licenses, which were given to people on a beauty parade type thing, where you put together an application and said, we are wonderful people, here's why we are wonderful people, here are the wonderful things we promise we will do, not that there's any legal commitment for us to ever do any of them, but we will do all these wonderful things. Oh, okay, that sounds good. And we know you're a very important person like Mike Willisey or Rod Muir or Glenn Wheatley or whoever, or Holmes a Court in the case of SAFM or Cooper's Brewery and so on. We think you're all lovely people, so we're going to give you a license for free, nothing, absolutely nothing. In this case, once I persuaded them with the help of a few other people, ironically, I was only thinking about this morning. One of them was the late Doug Mulray.
Really?
We had nothing really to do with each other previously, nothing in common, and yet we came together and did some lobbying together to get the licenses.
Amazing.
It was. And I'd completely forgotten about it until that moment. Anyway, we persuaded them, and then they said, okay, we're going to make lots of money out of this. We're going to put them at auction, and the highest bidder will get them. So all the work that I had done to persuade the two governments to go ahead and make licenses available so that somebody could buy them, we had no more chance than anybody else.
Wow, after all that.
After all of that, everybody, and they came out of the woodwork everywhere. People who had campaigned avidly, committedly against new licenses were suddenly bidders for those new licenses. Oh, it's not such a bad idea after all. We'll go ahead and bid for this.
Wow.
And of course that pushed the price up greatly.
Yep.
So at that point in time, you either pay the money or you give up everything and say, okay, too hard, forget it. Well, too hard, you should stop thinking about too hard back at the beginning, not at that point.
Yeah.
And the company at the time, DMG, didn't walk away, and they committed. And we got pretty much all the licenses that became available, one after the other, because if you're going to build a network, you've got to have one everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. And that was the beginning of the Nova network. But going back to your original question about 5AA, it was the home of the core group at the very beginning while we went through the lobbying process. And I just needed to start getting some people together.
Yeah.
Some of the others came in later, important people like Dean Buchanan came in after we got the Sydney licence.
Yeah.
There was a limit to how many people you could employ with no network to run a network, and there was no network. But just emphasising the point that I made before, and I touched on before, the bravery of the people who came with me in those early days when I said, we will build a network, there are no licenses, there are no stations, and we are here sitting in Adelaide, small town, small metropolitan market. Out of this, we will build a new network, and it will challenge the existing dominant Austereo network in a reasonable period of time. There were two options, well, probably more than two, but two that were considered at that time. And one was, because we were so deeply understanding of what Austereo did, is to recreate Austereo and have it run against the original Austereo.
So do you mean in terms of formats?
Yep,
and,
yep,
yeah, okay, right.
yep.
Yep.
And I think that's what everybody expected. I think that was the expectation in the radio industry everywhere. And if we had hired an Austereo programmer, and we very nearly did, I won't go into how or why other than to say the history of Boost Juice may have been very different had that happened. We instead went with a guy that I didn't know but talked to and related to well in Dean Buchanan, and we decided to go absolutely the other way.
Right.
Every element, almost every element, of Austereo that had been part of my very being for years and years and years and years, we were going to walk away from. The great success that Austereo had had with its researching everything within an inch of its life, very successfully. We said, no, we're going to play this new music that we believe is there. Can't research it. No one's ever heard of it. So we can't research that, and we don't want to research it at this stage. We did later, but not at that launch phase, and for quite a long time after the launch phase. So going in with music that overwhelmingly was not known by anyone much, personalities that also were risky, American Rosso being at the heart of all of that, and I heard a story about the American Rosso era from Keith Thomas the other day, which I don't know whether I'll repeat it or not. I'll think about that for a moment.
Okay, sure.
But they were great. They really were great because they came across from Triple J, and they were taking a huge risk. That was bravery for them.
So it feels like that, even though I'm sitting here talking to you about your bravery, you're very keen to make sure that there's an understanding that the bravery was also the people that took a risk with you, came along for the ride, even when it wasn't obvious or even possible at some points of the journey, that what you were effectively asking them to believe in would actually happen.
And when you stop and think about it now, why would they? You could say, how dumb was that?
Well, perhaps they're risk takers, and I think that, you're calm and I feel like saying comforting personality as a CEO. I feel like that invited a certain type of person who wanted to come along that journey for almost the opposite reason than you'd expect. You see visionary, gregarious, loud CEOs like a Richard Branson sort of type, who are publicity seeking and who are happy to do all the stunts to get attention, etc. And you can understand logically why people would go, oh, well, that's exciting, let's follow that leader. But your leadership journey and the people that you've attracted around you are also risk takers, but perhaps in a way that's more considered or more unsure of the journey, but knowing that the journey itself would be worthwhile, even if there wasn't actually a license in Sydney or a destination. I wonder if that's also a testament to your own leadership styles, that people believe in your belief, and that's enough because they go, okay, well, we're not sure how this is going to go, but if Paul believes it, then that's enough for us.
Well, it does and that does link back to my earlier comment that belief and bravery are so intertwined. And I guess they were. I never really. We were so busy at that time, so incredibly busy, night and day. I often later used to hear about people talking about work-life balance and how important it is, and I didn't have any work-life balance. What wasn't a semblance of work-life balance. You have work-life balance, you don't, Nova wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
Austereo wouldn't exist.
Exactly.
Forget work-life balance.
You have to be able to commit fully, don't you, to that?
And a lot of people would probably rightly say they sacrificed a lot of their work-life balance as well for to make it all work. I hope they're all making up for it now.
And more conversation coming in our next episode with Paul Thompson. It's our final of the 3-part series. And in that episode, he talks about the growth of the Nova network and what led to the failure of Vega. That's coming up tomorrow. Dear listener, see you in your podcast feed then.